My family came up with the tradition that during every special occasion, we eat both Chinese and Indian food. My mom's side of the family is from India, while my dad's side is from China. My mom cooks a variety of Indian dishes such as naans, roti, and halva. My dad likes to cook dim sum, rice, and noodles. We eat Asian food during almost every occasion, from graduation parties to Thanksgiving. The tradition began with my parents because they were the first in my family tree to have an interracial marriage. Both of my parents learned how to cook these dishes from my grandparents. My mom grew up in Punjab and spent a lot of her time learning how to cook because Indian women were expected to learn chores such as cooking and cleaning at the time. My dad was born Cantonese and lived in Hong Kong until he was 18. Both of my parents eventually immigrated to different parts of the United States in search of a better education and career opportunities. Even though they were exposed to a completely different culture, they wanted to preserve the ideals of their old cultures as well. The dishes my parents make are foods that they grew up eating in their home countries. My grandmother taught my mother how to make halva, an Indian dessert. She usually makes halva with tahini, a type of sesame paste, and nut butter. Halva originated in Saudi Arabia and was eaten as a main course without any other entrees or appetizers. I asked my father about his childhood experiences with Cantonese food. My father told me that his grandparents ate dim sum very early in the mornings. His extended family would visit him over the weekends with dim sum that they bought. Dim sum was commonly served during large family events in China.
My family has two very unique cultural backgrounds that help mold our family identity in many diverse traditions. From my father's line, I have a Caucasian cultural background, while on my mother's side, I have been influenced by the Chinese culture. Since I was born and raised in America, I have mainly been exposed to my father's cultural traditions and backgrounds. Growing up, I attended a private Catholic school. My family went to church every Sunday, and we celebrated all of the American holidays and traditions. The only Chinese cultural practice I learned was the act of prayer. I was first introduced to the cultural significance behind this tradition when I was a young girl. During this time, my Chinese grandmother lived with my family, and I noticed that she would pray every afternoon to a small figurine of a goddess. I would always join her because I wanted to hold an incense stick and wave it around just as she did. I did this with her every day, and finally she got me my own statue and I put it in my room. Although suddenly I had this amazing connection to my Chinese culture, I still had no idea who or what this figurine represented. However, one stormy night I received my first lesson. My grandma was tucking me into bed and I told her that I was scared. She gently smiled at me and explained that the statue she gave me was the goddess of mercy, also known as Kuan Yin. My grandma went on to tell me that if I prayed to her, she would protect me. Although this gave me a slight understanding of Kuan Yin, I still had no meaningful connection to this intriguing goddess or the Chinese tradition of prayer. However, through this assignment, I was able to further my understanding about this aspect of my Chinese culture by outside research and enlightening discussions with both my grandmother and mother. To better appreciate my family's connection to Kuan Yin, I began researching the goddess in scholarly journals. To my surprise, I almost immediately found the reason my mother and grandmother both feel such a strong connection to the goddess. In the article, Kuan Yin Statue as Feng Shui Cure for Your Home, I read about the connection and symbolism of motherhood that the goddess represents. The article explained, the energy Kuan Yin expresses is akin to what a mother feels for her child. It is fiercely loving and protective, a much stronger energy than what we usually associate with compassion. Once I had this understanding, I was ready to explore the specific connection my family shares with the goddess.
I interviewed my Indian grandmother to learn more about my family tradition. The food my mother makes comes from a family recipe passed down from older generations. In India, most mothers teach their daughters how to cook at a very early age in order to prepare them to cook for their future families. In the past, Indian women generally became housewives and usually did not get a higher education. My grandmother never went to college or even learned how to drive, but instead spent a lot of her time doing household chores, such as cooking and cleaning. My mother decided to move to America because she knew that she would have fewer opportunities in India.
Kuan Yin she stands for the goddess of mercy, for compassion, for health, and she was actually born a human, but with sainthood like Buddha. And she is prayed to a lot. They have special days just for her. She is very compassionate. You can pray to her for health, for protection, for safety, but never for money or for gain. And you go into a real temple that's dedicated to Kuan Yin. When you go in during her festival, you can feel her presence. And it's the same way as all religion. They have the symbolic, they have the symbol like Virgin Mary and the green Tara for the Indian, for the Hindu religion. And Kuan Yin is for the Buddhism. So, but they are all somehow related. Goddess of mercy, of compassion.
At the time, it was uncommon for Asians to not have an arranged marriage or to marry someone of a different race. In the United States, interracial marriage was more accepted by society. Interracial marriage was not fully legalized until 1967. However, the approval rate of interracial marriages in the United States currently is only at 86%. Some people disapprove of interracial marriages because they believe that we should marry within the same race. We believe that intercultural relations can extend our knowledge of other races. By sharing aspects of our culture with others, we can learn more about their histories. All of our family histories are important because they are tied to our cultures. Many of our historical traditions are specific to cultures within certain countries.
We both have parents who are from a minority culture. They have the option to either resist and separate themselves to American culture or to integrate both cultures. The definition of resistance and separatism is the rejection of dominant group values and norms and is often triggered by negative events. My mother came to the U.S. to attend college. Luckily, she made plenty of friends and enjoyed her first few years in America. Simi's parents moved from the U.S. from India and China in search of a higher education. They also transitioned well into the American culture. Both of our parents had positive experiences that led them to accept the norms of American culture. If they had a negative experience, they might have decided to resist the new culture and move back home.
Our parents reestablished their identities within their minority status using these traditions. Even though they live in the United States, they chose to integrate with American culture instead of leaving their old cultures behind. They share a strong sense of their own group identity and an appreciation for other cultural groups. Our identities are strongly based on the values our parents teach us as children. We continue to shape these values and identities through interactions with our friends and classmates.
My rebate placement is at a Japanese senior center called UI Kai. Over the quarter, I got a chance to meet and get to know Martin, a Japanese senior who goes to the center every day. Martin immigrated to the U.S. because of military reasons. He would tell me many stories about his positive experiences traveling across the country. These positive events led him to accept American culture as his own. This shows another example of integration.
Both of our family traditions show the importance of integration and minority identity in our society.